So welcome back to Finance Mandarin China Insights. Dr. Yan and Vian Li, thank you very much for your time again today. We've already talked about leadership in business, and we talked about the different cultures between the Western and the Chinese way of thinking. Now we will investigate business etiquette in China. Dr. Yan, how does the different thinking manifest itself in the business customs or business etiquette in China?
John, that's an excellent question. You have to go back and think that the Chinese, so they're a very strong sense of family. So the family group is their most intimate group. And then they have the group that belongs to the clan, people with the same last name, relatives, and all this stuff. And then they have people from the same village or province. So they think that way in terms of the sense. So there's a sense of group identity. So this is something that Westerners find it difficult to accept, because Westerners were brought up to be individuals. So they are given from God, and they have parents, but then after they're born and adults, they leave to have their homes. Chinese don't do that. They tend to stick around with their families, and as a result, when Westerners talk to Chinese, they have to understand that they're not just talking to one individual. They're actually talking to his group. The guy that you're dealing with is probably more concerned about his own department or his own company rather than by his own business or his particular project. So you have to understand that and elevate their thinking a little bit higher to appeal to the guys, to bring up the higher order group into the conversation and think of solutions that also will fit the group objective. Well, I think the other thing you have here on the screen is harmony. The Chinese, because the way they've been living together for so long, so they learn the social rules is that not to step on each other. So that means that the Western way of attending meetings, very pointed, very aggressive tactics, that should be pulled back a little bit, because that would be considered as offensive. So you were disturbing the harmony of the atmosphere, and Chinese don't do that. Even though they have severe objection to your approach to things, they don't, overtly in the public make a fool of you. So it's important to understand that. Do not puncture that veil of harmony in Chinese group surroundings. And then there's the concept of respect. Now, the Western businessmen generally like to deal with projects, this particular investment, and they don't somehow put respect for the client as the number one priority. Now, in China, especially when you deal with state-owned enterprises, the project success or not has nothing to do with the guy that you deal with. So you have to give him a lot of respect, even though he's not going to be personally benefiting from the project you're working with, but he needs someone to show that, okay, I am somebody, and I should be respected in this encounter. How do you do that? You respect him in a meeting, number one person, and you bring him appropriate gifts. You bring people that are senior quality to meet with him, or maybe even a higher level than him to elevate him. And you go to social functions, you make sure he has his spotlight on him. So, and you hover around him to show he's well taken care of. They like that.
So there's very much a hierarchy, and you need to show respect within the hierarchy.
Absolutely. Chinese companies are very hierarchical organization, brings certain people to meet with equally ranked officials or leaders in the counterparty. So you need to have the right people. If you want to meet somebody, then you have to bring the right people to meet with some person.
What about, everybody's heard about face and guanxi. You have some comment?
This face is something that is difficult to appreciate by Westerners. Now, face is not what you see when you look in the mirror, and how you look and all that stuff. Because Chinese people are taught to be humble, so that's Confucian teaching. So they never brag about themselves in the open. Doesn't mean that they don't have the urge to feel dignified or appreciated. So what they do is that they rely on other people to heap the praise on them. So when you do that to some people's face, so that's for a Western businessman in China, it's important for them to know how to give face, okay? To say the appropriate things in public and got written up in a newspaper. Okay, so and so from U.S. praise this project and the leader, and that's giving them face in a massive way. So we need to understand that the kind of importance of face in China. In Westerners, face is just just how you look. But in China, because of this concept of humility, face is how other people look at you. And then that's important. You need to find the influence to make this person look good.
And finally, the last point here, guanxi.
Yeah. Yes, guanxi, in direct translations, relationship. Now, there are many kinds of relationships, and the Chinese guanxi is a little bit more involved. It's more like, how much have you invested in me? A guanxi is not like you met with me for 10 minutes in a meeting, we go for coffee, and then we have a guanxi. No, it's not like that. It's how much you are invested in me, and more importantly, how much are you willing to do for me when I'm in trouble? So when Donald Trump said that he has a good relationship with President Xi Jinping, it did happen. You remember when there were these basketball players from the U.S. visited China, they got arrested for shoplifting. And then Trump appealed to Xi Jinping for the release of these students. And it happened. Xi Jinping intervened and they were released. Otherwise, they would have to spend time in jail in China. They ruined their whole career. And so that happened. So that's part of the thing what Xi Jinping did for Donald Trump. Now later on, when the company ZTE got in trouble because they violated some U.S. export rules to Iran and places like that, and also violated their own agreement with the U.S. Commerce Department. So the Commerce Department slapped on this huge fine on them, also stopped selling the critical components for them to make their products. Now again, I think Xi Jinping appealed to Donald Trump, look, can you do something for me? And Donald Trump, against the advice of the Congress, and allowed that to happen. So you can say that these two had some relationship, if not publicly that we know.
At least publicly, they are invested in each other.
Critical, yeah. But then you're talking about guanxi that's developed through hardships, through solving problems together in difficult situations. That's what they need.
And there's 5 business customs that a Western leader really needs to understand.
Yes.
Vienne, can you share with us some of your students' experiences?
Yes, it's true. It's absolutely true that CEO from Western country, if they would like to do business in China, they must understand those 5 business customs that you mentioned as before. Let me give you an example. A managing director from a U.S. asset management giant meeting at CSRC Zhengjianhui in Beijing. How long should he wait? 90 minutes? 3 hours? What can our MD learn from this? Waiting is a normal practice in dealing with Chinese officials. Now, depends on the context. Who has a higher ranking in the business? When you know the rules of the games, who need the business, and then you can relax more. While you're waiting, better spend your time in WeChat.
Yes.
Following the official WeChat account of the Minister of Finance, or connecting with any official that you know, or the ministers or the politician in WeChat. Let me give you another example of the recent case. A country head from a Western finance institution tried to negotiate a partnership about the payment system with the SOE bank in China. The meeting was cancelled at the last minute. And then 2 weeks later, the meeting finally happened. But the China bank sent a junior person to come for the meetings. Now, the Western company was very unhappy. She didn't understand the mismatch of the seniorities matching. She didn't understand at this stage that her company wants much more effort from the China bank. I suggest at that moment that the CEO, that the country head, should try to be more tolerant and accept those inconvenience at this period and attempt to get the meetings many times. Only for a couple of times, and then Chinese bank consider them as a serious equal partner.
So Vienne, those two cases show the importance of respect and the relative hierarchy, one of the points that Dr. Yen mentioned. But how do Western leaders adapt to these customs and use them to their advantage? Do you have any success cases?
About the practical side, we will advise a senior executive on each individual case. We also do coaching on a practical aspect of the business life. For example, how to set up your WeChat account and how to use it, post friends circle, use pinyin to type Chinese, use the voice input, how to post your status, how to use the Alipay, 支付宝, and how to go shopping online using Taobao, and how to use the taxi app Didi 出行. All of this are daily business life. That's how you make connection and build relationship with Chinese people.
So that's all the practical aspects, Vienne. Any success cases?
Yes, we do have many successful cases. Managing director gave a keynote sales pitch for off-site training in Beijing. Even though he's a beginner, that's his first speech in Chinese, addressing to his Chinese sales team in Beijing. So in one hand, the managing director gave face to the Chinese team, and on the other hand, the Chinese team praise the leader in front of the group, say your Chinese is excellent, even though maybe it's mama-hoo-hoo, but because he did try and attempt to show his respect to the Chinese team. So the Chinese team, in another hand, to praise him in a public. Another example is a CEO meeting with a government minister at the Great Hall of People, 人民大会堂. Even though he's a beginner as a Mandarin speaking, he's managed to introduce himself and being polite to the minister and show respect. For example, private equity managing director had a lunch meeting at the 钓鱼台国宾馆. It's quite an honor to be invited to this venue. It's a great chance at a lunch for her to build connection with her Chinese clients. 关系 is what Dr. Yan you just mentioned about. At this situation, she opened up a little bit about her family, 家庭, and talking about her daughter and son's achievement in the universities. The fourth and final example is a CEO speaking in Davos World Economic Forum. At his speech, he correctly used the Chinese idiom 风雨同舟, which means the windy day and the good day stay in the same boat. That means the tough time and the good time will stay together, hand in hand. When he was using this Chinese idiom, he actually showed great respect to President Xi Jinping, as Xi Jinping has used 风雨同舟 many times in his public speech to the global leaders. So in a humble way, he shows that he studied the Chinese way of thinking.
So thank you both, Dr. Yan and Vienne, for sharing with us about Chinese business customs. Let us understand much more clearly.
Thank you.